Most advice about surviving artificial intelligence in the workplace falls into one of two categories. Either it is vague enough to mean nothing, such as advising people to be more creative or to develop soft skills, or it is so technical that it only applies to people already working in technology. This video is neither of those things. These are 5 specific documented skills that research consistently identifies as resilient, with data on why they are hard to automate and what developing them actually looks like in practice. Stick with us until the end, because skill 5 is the one that applies to almost every profession and almost nobody is developing it deliberately. But before getting into the list, one thing needs to be said clearly. These skills do not make anyone immune. The labor market is being restructured faster than at any point since industrialization. And anyone telling you that 5 skills will guarantee job security is not being straight with you. What the research does show is that people with these capabilities are significantly less exposed than those without them, and that the gap between the two groups is widening every year. That is the honest framing, and it is the only one worth your time. Skill 1. Complex negotiation and persuasion. Not basic communication, not being articulate in meetings. Actual high-stakes negotiation, the kind that happens in M&A deals, in labor disputes, in international contracts, in crisis situations where two parties have genuinely opposing interests. And the outcome matters significantly to both. Here is why artificial intelligence cannot do this. Negotiation at its highest level is not an optimization problem. It is a dynamic, emotional, often irrational human process where the relationship between the parties, the timing of concessions, the reading of unspoken signals, and the willingness to walk away are as important as the substance of what is being discussed. A model can analyze precedent and suggest positions, and several already do. But the actual negotiation, the room, the relationship, and the judgment call about when to push and when to concede requires something that no current or near-future system can replicate reliably. According to the World Economic Forum Future of Jobs report, negotiation is consistently ranked among the top 10 skills least susceptible to automation, and demand for it in senior roles is projected to increase through 2030. The way to develop it deliberately is not a course. It is repetition in real situations with real stakes, starting smaller than feels comfortable and building from there. Skill 2. The ability to translate between technical and non-technical audiences. This is more specific than it sounds, and it is more valuable than most people realize. As artificial intelligence tools become embedded in every industry, the gap between the people who understand what the technology can do and the people who make decisions about how to use it is becoming one of the most expensive gaps in any organization. The people who can sit in both rooms, who can explain to a board why a particular model is producing unreliable outputs, or help an engineering team understand what the business actually needs from a system, are not being replaced by artificial intelligence. They are being actively recruited by every major company currently deploying it. McKinsey identified this translation capability as one of the highest value skills in organizations undergoing digital transformation, with senior roles requiring it commanding salary premiums of between 20 and 40% over equivalent roles that do not. Developing this skill requires deliberate exposure to both sides. Reading technical documentation and then explaining it to someone non-technical. Sitting in business strategy meetings and then translating the outcomes into technical requirements. It is uncomfortable at first and valuable very quickly. Skill 3. Ethical reasoning and accountability under uncertainty. This sounds abstract until you consider what organizations are actually grappling with right now. Artificial intelligence systems are making or influencing decisions in hiring, lending, healthcare, criminal justice, and content moderation. Every one of those domains involves trade-offs between competing values, and someone has to be accountable for those trade-offs. That someone cannot be the model. Models do not carry legal liability, they do not have reputations, they do not go to prison. The humans who deploy them do. As artificial intelligence takes on more decision-making capacity, the demand for people who can reason carefully about the ethics of those decisions, who can identify where a system is producing biased or harmful outputs and explain why it matters, is increasing, not decreasing. A 2024 report by the Oxford Internet Institute found that roles explicitly requiring ethical reasoning or responsible technology capabilities grew by 68% year-on-year across major technology and financial services companies. That growth is coming from regulatory pressure, reputational risk, and the genuine complexity of deploying these systems in high-stakes environments. The skill itself is developed through structured exposure to real cases, philosophy of ethics applied to technology contexts, and the habit of asking who benefits and who is harmed before a system goes live. This is a good moment to name what connects the first three skills. None of them are things artificial intelligence is getting better at on the same curve as everything else. Pattern recognition, text generation, data analysis, and image synthesis are improving at extraordinary speed. But complex human judgment in high-stakes relational contexts, the kind required in negotiation, translation between worlds, and ethical accountability, is improving much more slowly. The structural reasons for that are unlikely to change in the near term. The next two skills follow the same logic. Skill 4 is building and maintaining high-trust relationships at scale, not networking in the LinkedIn sense. This is the ability to build genuine trust with a wide range of people over time, across organizational boundaries, across cultures, and across levels of seniority. It is the kind of trust that makes people call you when something is going wrong, rather than after it has already gone wrong. This matters enormously in an environment where artificial intelligence is handling more and more of the transactional layer of work. As routine interactions get automated, the relationships that survive are the ones built on something more durable than convenience. Those relationships, where someone picks up the phone because they trust the judgment on the other end, are not replicable by a system. Research published in Harvard Business Review across multiple industries found that senior professionals with extensive cross-functional trust networks were significantly more likely to be retained during restructuring driven by technology adoption. They were also significantly more likely to be given new roles when old ones were eliminated. The mechanism is simple. When organizations are changing fast, they keep the people they trust, not just the people with the right skills on paper. This is not a soft advantage. It is a structural one. Skill 5, directing artificial intelligence effectively. This is the one that applies to almost every profession, and almost nobody is developing it deliberately. That is the reason it was saved for last. There is a significant and widening gap between people who use artificial intelligence tools occasionally and passively, and people who understand how to direct them precisely, how to construct prompts that produce useful outputs, how to identify when a model is hallucinating or producing plausible-sounding nonsense, and how to integrate these tools into a workflow in a way that actually multiplies output rather than just adding a step. That gap is already showing up in hiring data. A LinkedIn workforce report from 2024 found that job postings explicitly requiring artificial intelligence collaboration skills grew by over 200% in a single year. Not artificial intelligence development skills, which require a technical background. Artificial intelligence collaboration skills, the ability to work effectively alongside these tools in any professional context. The reason this is protective is counterintuitive. The people most at risk from artificial intelligence are not the ones who understand it. They are the ones who do not, and whose employers will eventually find that someone who does can do the same job with better outputs in less time. The way to develop this skill is not a certification. It is daily deliberate practice, with the tools relevant to a specific field, treating each interaction as an opportunity to understand what the system does well and where it fails. Here is the honest summary. The 5 skills covered in this video: complex negotiation, technical translation, ethical reasoning, trust-based relationships, and directing artificial intelligence effectively, share one characteristic. They all sit above the information processing layer of work, and that layer is what is being automated, not the judgment above it. not the relationships that give context to it, not the accountability that governs it. The question worth sitting with is not whether artificial intelligence is coming for a particular job. For most jobs, in most sectors, it already is. The question is whether the skills that sit above the automated layer are being developed deliberately, or whether the assumption is still that credentials and experience will be enough. For most of the previous generation, that assumption was correct. The data suggests it no longer is.